Welcome to chapter number 9. As you can see from the slide, we're going to talk about layout and various strategies. We're going to talk about office layouts, retail layouts. A very important topic in supply chain is something called cross-docking, and I'll give you an example from Walmart. Fixed position layouts, work cells, and point number 7, we're also going to talk about line balancing. Now, the objective of any layout strategy is to be efficient and to be effective. Some of you may work places where it's very inefficient, or you may have a kitchen situation where it's not very efficient for making a meal. A lot of thought goes into like the design of a kitchen, like say you have an island or you don't have an island, like how far apart are things, are they too close together? Even simple things like when you open the dishwasher, if you have one, can people get by? Like, is there space? And let alone the functionality of like a commercial kitchen or something along that line. You need to utilize your space, your equipment, and your people with a high degree of efficiency and utilization. You need to have flexibility to be able to move things around. And we're going to talk about these various types of layouts. Office layouts. The worker goes to their equipment, and a lot of faculty love going to their office. Now, some of that is because their home setting is not ideal for working. I set up my home situation so it is ideal for working. And where I'm recording this lecture right now is a nice space where it's quiet. I don't have to worry about being interrupted because I'm the only one that's here. So what you may have to set up with, whether you're going to be taking courses online or even if you have a workspace at home, make sure that you have your space set up the way that it's functional for you. Retail, very much it's all about shelf space in retail and how customers come into the store, how they wander around the store, how we're herded around the store with aisles typically in retail. And if anybody's ever gone to IKEA, they have a very unique layout. And retail in particular pays a lot of attention to where do customers pass? What spots do they pass? So for example, at the end of the aisles, they're either called paid ends or end caps. And retailers or wholesalers actually will pay the retailer to have that space. So if they want a space for Kraft dinner, Kraft will pay Safeway or Superstore for the end of the aisle, because no matter what you want in the store, you have to walk by the end of the aisle. Very important area within retail. A lot of money is generated from that. Warehouses, shelves, and row upon row of shelving stacked literally as high as you can, because it's not just horizontal space, it's vertical space. These days they have shelving units that are adjustable, like you would if you bought a shelving unit for your home, which you may have bought because it allows you to adjust the gap between the shelves. Same concept. Fixed position, which is the norm for a classroom, but with online, you don't have to have fixed position. You break the history of everybody having to go to a certain place to do the work. And with today's technology, I'm a big believer you don't need to do that. Students do not need to go to the classroom as 3 and 4 hours a week. They don't. It's a waste of time. All the time and effort it takes for everybody to get there and then for everybody to leave. Sometimes for certain people, it takes them longer to get to school than the actual lecture. So what does the student do? Well, I'm going to spend like an hour and a half getting to school for an hour and 15-minute presentation, then an hour and a half going home. Now I'm going to skip class today. But with the use of technology, such as YouTube videos and Google Meets and Zoom and Collaborate and on, we don't have to have that nearly as much. So certain places where you do have to have it would be, say, a construction project, where you still need to bring the materials and the people and the equipment to, say, construct a home. Now, job shops are things like auto body repair places, and you can see, and we talked about this in an earlier chapter, where they're low volume and high variety. And they can vary. They need to be very flexible in how they set up their layouts. Work cells, very important, where you used to have a big long line of machines. Now you put them in a U or a C shape, because it used to be that it took, before a lot of automation, it took one operator, sometimes more than one operator, to be able to operate a machine. Well, with today's more and more mechanized and automated worlds, you don't need an operator standing there feeding the lumber in or whatever the case would be. Machines can do that. And think about all the automation you have in your home. Your dishwasher, you load it, turn it on. You go and put some laundry in the washing machine or the dryer, and then you leave it alone. Those used to be things that, like washing dishes, used to have to require somebody to be there. Washers, people used to have to do that by hand. Even dryers, they had wringer dryers and stuff like that. So talk to some very elderly people about those days when you didn't have a dryer. You had to wring, something by hand or through a machine to wring out the water. So it was a very manual process. And then product oriented, you can see where you bring, it's for a continuous process or repetitive process. So an assembly line would be an example. Office work layout, I've already mentioned, where the workers congregate around the equipment and the spaces. That's becoming less and less common because of the, again, technology, and with the COVID crisis, we can see more and more of that. People are learning how to use Zoom for meetings and realizing, oh, I don't have to, again, spend time traveling to the meeting. I can just, and if I happen to miss it, or it's recorded and I can watch it later, just like a student who signs up for a course, but they're working while the class is on, they can listen to it later and only lose hopefully a small portion of the live lectures. Retail, I've already mentioned, the goal is to maximize profitability, obviously per square foot, and the ends of the aisles. Next time you go into a retail, especially a grocery store, if you look at the ends of the aisles, every single one of those paid ends or end caps, whatever product is there, whoever the provider of that product is, whether it be Scott Paper Towel or whatever, they've paid for that space. As sales go up, it's the most valuable space in a retail setting. So you also put, with retail, you put the hydro items around the edges or periphery of the store. You don't put it at the front because you don't want people just to walk in and walk out. You actually want to make your customers wander around the entire store. Some companies are finally giving in to the fact of having an app. So if you had say a grocery list and you could find it in the store, there are now, some places are now allowing that for customers, but employees have had that for a long time. I had an employee who worked at Safeway, and they had an app, because you have the opposite goal with employees. You want them to know, oh, somebody left a can of tomato juice. Where do I put that away? And if they have the app, they can minimize their time. You want your customers to wander around the store like you would have learned in marketing. You want to keep the customer in the store as much as possible, and they see something and they grab it and put it in their cart. I've already mentioned point number 4 a couple of times, for the end of the aisles. Slotting is, where does the product get displayed? Even having your products literally physically stick out from the shelf a little bit increases sales. You want the conditions the lighting is important, and noise and smell and things like that. Spatial layout, how much room there is in the aisles. You want this space to have, sort of, if it's narrow, then people aren't going to go up and down it because it's like a one-way street. You want it wide enough that two carts, say, can pass each other. Again, signage is important. When you go, again, especially if you look at a retail place and you look at the signs and you're looking for something, read the ends of the signs. And then some stores are very well laid out. They not only just have signs at the end, but as soon as you go to the aisle, along the aisle, they have signs saying, oh, this is where the seasoning is. Warehouses are very different. It's all about the vertical space that they have and putting things away so that they're easy to access and stacking them way higher than you would in, say, retail, because your goal, you have machines to go, like forklifts and devices to go up and get, say, a refrigerator that's like 3 levels up, or a sofa or something along that line, that are stored quite high in the shelving. You would not do that in retail. So you want to minimize the number of what they call touches. You want to minimize how much time a person is touching it, and more automation is coming into place, but it's very expensive to really automate a warehouse like fully. But it's coming more and more because it's less expensive than people. And this is what I was just mentioning with the automated storage and retrieval systems. If you're more interested in that, it's really not part of this particular course, but if you took a course in logistics, it'd be a big part of that. And you can see that there's huge advantages for productivity, but they're very expensive. Cross-docking. You have done cross-docking. So let me explain it on a personal level. You come home and you've done grocery shopping and you're hungry. Rather than taking the can of soup out of your bag and taking it out of the bag, opening your shelf, put it into your shelf and close the shelf door, what you would do is this: I'm hungry, I want some soup. You would take the can of soup directly out of the bag, open it up, heat it, and eat it. That's cross-docking. You would not take it out of a semi-trailer truck that arrives, go and put it on the shelf in your warehouse, and then go and get it after you've made the effort to put it on the shelf. Go and get it and go and put it on another truck. The Walmart example I want to use is there's a person at the Walmart logistics facility in Northeast Calgary that his entire job is, if a store is out of a product, his entire job is to do this. A truck arrives, and by the way, the Walmart warehouse knows what's on the truck before it gets there. And he knows that that truck is arriving at a certain time, and he will get that product off that truck, and he can get it onto another truck. So what he does is he takes the product out of the first truck that just arrived. He takes it out, and they go across the dock. That's where the cross-docking comes. And rather than putting it on their shelves and then taking it off, they walk it across, or if it's heavy, they drive it across with a pallet for a forklift or whatever, and they put it on the new truck. He has told me that on our tours that he can do that. The shortest period of time he can do that is 20 minutes. He is measured by this metric, that when a product arrives, he has 24 hours to get it out the door. Because when product is missing at the Walmart store and there's an out of stock tag, your sales are zero, and customers will start buying that product elsewhere. So he has an incredibly important job, and that's what he does every day, 5 days a week. He cross-docks. He has a list. I've seen it. He has a list of what's coming in. He has a list of where it's going to, and he and his associates make sure that that product is first off the truck, and then it goes on to another truck as quickly as possible. So it gets to the store as quickly as possible. So you minimize stockouts. Pretty straightforward traditional layout. You've got rows or aisles, conveyor systems. If you ever get a chance to go to an Amazon or a Walmart They don't usually do public tours, but maybe talk to your instructor about taking you. It's quite an impressive facility. The Walmart we're talking tens of thousands of boxes a day. I know at the Walmart one in Northeast Calgary, it's approximately one box every 2 seconds. And they go on these rollers. All right, here's cross-docking, where it goes in, off one truck onto another truck. So it doesn't go onto the shelves. It needs to go on to the shelves in a virtual sense for accounting purposes. So you would take the goods off the first truck, put it into virtual inventory, and then take it out. It still needs to be recorded that way, but it doesn't have to physically go on the shelf. All right, fixed position. Again, workers and equipment go to the site. That's, again, construction sites. You have to be careful how many people are there at a time, what order they do things in. And school has traditionally been a fixed position layout, but it's also an expensive way to do things. We could save not millions, not tens of millions. We could save hundreds of millions of dollars a year in Alberta if we got away from fixed position layouts, having everybody go to the classroom, sit there, take notes, and then leave. It's an incredibly expensive. The number of classrooms we would not need anymore if we cut down, say, you went to the class once a week instead of twice a week, but did the other 2 hours or hour online, would be incredible cost savings and reduce capacity requirements. Again, process oriented, you group machines that are similar so they work together, and so you don't have to move things too far. So here's an example. I'll let you take a look at this, how they do radiology and surgery in a hospital or emergency room. Work cells, I've already mentioned. They need to be configured in a U or a C shape, because just think about where you sit to work. You're perhaps even sitting right now. If you look around, do you have your printer right beside you? Do you have, say, if you happen to need a calculator, or certainly your keyboard and your mouse and things along that line, whatever equipment you need. A headset to listen to this if you want, or a mic. This is, by the way, is a trend in having work cells, and it's because of automation. You can run multiple machines at one time. Studies that I have seen say the average worker in today's world can simultaneously operate 5 to 8 machines at one time. And I would anticipate that down the road, that's going to then become 8 to 10, 10 to 12. You get the idea. More and more automation. The ability to operate things like on your phone or your tablet. You can turn on your TV with your phone these days. You can have it record a show automatically by just setting it up in your PVR, and not have to go back and program it for every single occurrence. You got coffee makers that will make coffee before you even wake up. And they're coming out with smart refrigerators and smart ovens and things along this line, all that you can operate with your phone. So it's becoming more and more, and will expand in industry and in our personal lives. So here's the difference. To organize it in a C or a U shape. And really, when I've demonstrated it in the classroom, part A is a straight line, and there would be one worker at each workstation. So if there's 6 of them, 6 of these little circles, there would be 6 workers, and you used to have 1 worker per machine. Now you have 1 or 2, and they can just like literally reach out and get what they need. So figure B is a better example of what I was referring to, where it's all a straight line. Just picture yourself for a moment, how much time it would take you to go from the far left to the far right. When I do this in the classroom, if we have a classroom setting, what I'll do is I'll write A, B, C, D, E on the board. And then I'll have a student literally tell me which workstation to go to. And the ones that are the best demonstrations where they say go from A to D, back to B, over to E, and then you can see that all the wasted time in walking from one workstation to another is that a waste. Whereas when you do it in a circle or semicircle, you just can reach out. You also notice things if the machine is out of paper, if the job is done, because that's again waste. When a machine is done and you're still waiting for the next job, that idle time is the most expensive time of operating the machine. Line balancing, which we're going to do some examples using Excel on. It's a simple concept, but with the software, it makes the calculations much easier. When I first taught line balancing and we did it by hand, the class average was typically 40 to 45%. Then when we started using the Excel software, the class average literally doubled to 80 to 85%. So we will use the Excel software. If you want to do it by hand, be my guest. But I'm going to show you how to calculate the minimum number of workstations using Excel, how to assign jobs. And we're going to use there's different rules for line balancing, and we'll use rule number 2, which is the most number of successors. The concept of line balance is this, and where it gets the word balancing. If you picture a classroom and one person has way more work than everybody else, and every job needs to go through all the students in the room, it's going to be slowed down by that one student who would be the bottleneck. And in that particular case, if you evened out the work, balanced it, if everybody had about the same amount of time, you would be able to increase your throughput. So what you're trying to do is group things together so that everybody has the same amount of work. And we'll do that using the Excel software, and we'll see how efficient we can be. I hope you enjoyed the presentation.